Good afternoon. My name is Emily Meyer. I go by she, her, and today I'm going to be talking about empowering your data using creative visualizations. So a tiny bit about me before we get started. I'm a business intelligence developer at Imaginet in Winnipeg, Canada, and this is my very first time at the PASS Summit, so I'm very excited to be speaking today. I will jump right in. Why should you care about optimizing your data visualizations? Data visualizations are found everywhere, from a commercial boasting a 30% off sale to a utilization report, but the idea is the same in either case. You specifically have a piece of information and you need to communicate this information to some effect. Nobody is going to come to your 30% off sale, and nobody is going to allocate more resources to your project unless you can effectively communicate the value of doing so. And this is where creative visualizations can help. The overlying concept here is going to be to meet your audience where they are. Consider who will be viewing the presentation, is their unique perspective, what are your common interests, and this will guide your creation of effective visualizations. And when I say visualization, I am talking broad. I am talking any chart, graph, picture, or combination thereof that contains data, whether it be numeric, categoric, geospatial, whatever it is. There's going to be a way to make the communication of this data more effective. I'm going to introduce 3 strategies today: movement, color, and emotion. The first one I'll touch on is emotion. You've probably seen interactive infographics before with smooth transitioning data bars depending on your selection criteria, but this strategy can be applied in a bunch of different contexts, so I would encourage you to rethink movement, not just as the moving of data bars, but as a perspective frame, like a scene in a movie. So as an example, we often get this question when talking to new people: where do you live? This is where consideration for your audience comes in, and it's really not hard. We do it every day. I live in Mission, which is a neighborhood in Calgary, which is a city in Alberta, which is a province in Canada. And so if somebody in Calgary asks, where do you live? I say Mission, because they are likely to be familiar with the neighborhoods in the city that we are in. But if I'm traveling abroad in Europe and somebody asks, where do you live? I say Canada, because it's very unlikely that they're going to be familiar with the neighborhoods in Calgary. I meet them where they are based on the context and what they are likely to understand. But instead of explaining that Mission is a neighborhood in Calgary, which is a city in Alberta, which is a province in Canada, I could just show my audience this. I could utilize movement from a North American view to a neighborhood view to provide all the context necessary to understand where I live. So this movement strategy is very effective when emphasizing any sort of scale, be it size or time. Zooming in and out can show size. Moving left and right can show time. Left generally means the past. Right generally means the future, so you can use that. If you want to empower your data to invoke a future response, it could be as simple as using a slide transition in your PowerPoint to suggest the change going forward rather than cutting over to the next slide. It can be these really tiny mental things that make it click for your audience. Movement is also useful to give context to your data. Start at a data point that is familiar to your audience and move that data point to create a sort of anchoring effect from the familiar to the new and unknown. So the next strategy is the use of color, and I want you to keep in mind throughout this section, YMCA, I guess. If you're going to use this strategy, you need to keep in mind that some people don't view color the same as you. You will note the difference if you have regular vision from this schema to the blue blindness. So you can use color in your data visualizations, and it might seem basic, or you might even have heard an argument against using color. But color allows us to tap into the intuitive associations that color has. So green means eco-friendly, red means stop or angry, and blue means calm, or pure. But this is not a word association presentation, so let's just use them. Put yourself in the shoes of a business consultant interested in presenting strategies to improve employee satisfaction. So your unique perspective in this role means that you know for a fact that increased wellness expenditure for employees generates increased employee satisfaction. You're presenting this proposal to the expense-averse finance team. The finance team is familiar with the phrases in the red and in the black, and you're in the red when expenses outweigh your income. So meet them where they are. They are likely to see an increased expense as worse, as more red. So let's counteract that mental bias and make those graphs the opposite of red. We can make them green. Convince them that more wellness expenditure is better. Keep in mind that less can be more. Use color to emphasize. Think about the purpose for each color decision you make, and make sure to stay inclusive. Check your visuals with a color blindness simulator. Lastly, emotion. Now, emotion might not really seem like a creative visualization strategy per se, because it's hard to see visually in a presentation, but emotion is going to be your key to impact. The reality is that long-term, you're more likely to remember how you felt when you left this session than any of the content that any of us speakers are going to be talking about. So whether you feel inspired and empowered or wildly confused and cynical, that is what you're going to remember long-term. And in the short term, it's easier for our brains to attach content to strong meaning or emotions. And so if you are from Canada or even Alberta, you are going to attach to and remember this presentation more clearly and pay more active attention than somebody who is not from Canada, simply because we have that in common. You feel cozy, you feel at home, you feel spoken to because I'm relatable to you based on where you grew up or currently live. Now, generally, we are trying to attach our content to positive emotions. You're not going to ignite much change from a defeated audience. Even if you are presenting a scary and dire situation, you don't want to leave the audience feeling hopeless and scared. You catch more flies with honey or something like that. I don't know. But I do know I get a lot less done if I'm feeling dejected. So the thought process when applying this strategy goes like this. Firstly, get a clear picture of who your audience is. What is their unique perspective? How will they feel coming into this presentation? Maybe apprehensive, maybe curious, possibly dejected. And secondly, think about how you want your audience to feel at the end of your presentation based on what you're presenting and your desired outcome. Should they leave feeling inspired, educated, maybe creative? And lastly, pave their way. Gently guide them from their starting state to your desired ending state using your words and visualizations. And it's important to remember to show instead of telling. If your goal is to leave your audience feeling inspired and you suspect they'll come to you feeling dejected, instead of saying, you can do this, suggest something so easy and accessible as a first step, such as my suggestion a couple of minutes ago about using a slide transition. And then you can build your momentum from there. Now, if you take anything at all away from this short talk, I do want you to remember, if I haven't driven this home yet, meet your audience where they are. And number 2, practice thinking critically about the why. I hope I've convinced you that every little detail of a data visualization presentation matters. And once you start questioning every little detail, you begin wanting to make every little detail more effective. And that is the sweet spot where your own personal creativity can flourish. Whether that includes movement, color, and emotion or not, that is up to you. Thank you.